Good evening, and welcome to the 6th interview of Inside the Business of Design. This is the last one of this season, but I'm happy to tell you that we are going into season 2, and we'll be announcing that and kicking it off with Jonathan Adler in the fall, and we'll, in a couple of weeks, give you the full lineup. So we're very excited to continue this. The school's been very supportive, and we think that the industry and the audience has been excited, and we've seen more and more YouTube hits, so we're thrilled with the results of this first season. So thank you all for supporting us. Before I bring Holly out here, I just want to say a few thank yous. I want to thank the new school for giving us this beautiful auditorium, to Holly for actually providing the furniture tonight, and you'll hear all about sort of the history of everything that she has done through the years. Also, I'd like to thank Really Useful Media, who brings this program to life each week on our YouTube channel, and to Christine Tope, my assistant, who makes it look easy and makes all of this happen, and allows me to spin a million plates on my fingers every day. I'd also like to do a special thank you to Leslie Klotz and Stephen Raisler, who have been very supportive in helping bring people and doing our social media outreach, and been making this happen as well. So let me tell you a little bit about Holly. Holly bought a showroom in Chicago in 1983, and I want to say almost the rest is history, because if you haven't been to one of her showrooms, you certainly should be. And I remember the first time I walked into the Chicago showroom, and I realized that something significant had just happened, that somebody had truly raised the bar on how people sell and display beautiful furnishings. And the showrooms are probably the most magnificent showrooms now throughout the world, and we were just talking about her opening soon in Sao Paulo. She is a remarkable woman. I've known her for many years, and I think you're really going to enjoy hearing from her about the business side of Holly Hunt. So please join me in welcoming Holly Hunt.
Thank you.
So let's start from the beginning. Where were you born?
San Angelo, Texas.
Where's that?
Oh my goodness, it's somewhere not so far from San Antonio.
Okay.
And my mother tells a story when I was born in the hospital. I was the first of 4 children, but when I was born, it was a long time ago. And she said they only spoke to her in Spanish because they had all this black hair. And she didn't understand Spanish, but they were sure that I was Hispanic because I had all this black hair. And it took days for them not to speak to her in Spanish. Didn't bother me. It wasn't like I was talking, but.
Do you speak Spanish?
No, I wish I did. We didn't know how important it was going to be back when I was in high school.
Exactly. That's great. So your parents, what did they do?
You know, in thinking about my parents today, it's a lot different than thinking about my parents back then when I wanted to get away and have a different life, and they embarrassed me, and it was, my parents were school teachers. My father was the school superintendent. My mom and dad, I think, are a classic example of that, of Tom Brokaw's The Greatest Generation, because Dad was in World War II. Mom and Dad grew up in West Texas, and they believed very strongly in education first, church was second, civic responsibility was third. And nobody had heard this word about entitlement. This entitlement today, I think the culture in this country has changed a lot, and instead of responsibility anymore, we have entitlement. And I'm not talking about entitlements that we're promising to pay. I'm talking about wealthy kids with entitlement. I'm talking about poor kids with entitlement. I'm talking about everything. And I think that when you look at my parents, you said, oh my God, that was really boring. And yet, if you look at what's happened with conspicuous consumption today, and thank God for it, because that's what I'm selling.
I was going to say.
But, it's quite different.
It is, actually, I just had this conversation. I had breakfast this morning with the president of the college I went to. And we were talking about the different generations. And she was even mentioning how teachers today have a different sort of, they don't have the same sort of work ethic, not that it's a bad ethic, but they want that balance of life and...
Don't we all?
We do, but
But they have the summer off.
So you're the oldest of 4 children.
Yeah.
It's funny, I think 5 of the 6 people who we've interviewed for this series were all oldest children.
Who wasn't?
Who wasn't?
Yeah.
Bjorky.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
so fun. Did you see him? He is fabulous. I saw him speak in Denmark on one
Right.
of your things, the design summit. When was that? 2 years ago?
It was
He was
2011.
great. And he's so cute. You know.
Yeah. He's easy on the eyes.
Right.
That's good. So did you always think that you would get into the design world?
I didn't know how, but I always was thinking I would be a designer. I made my first dress in 5th grade on my mom's sewing machine, may have been 4th grade. And I sewed through and made patterns. And when we had events in school, I did some of the murals and stuff, and I thought that was great fun. And then when I got to college, it was not the Milan of the West. I went to Texas Tech. And and so how was I going to get into design? Well, I could have taken art courses, and I did take as much as I could, but my parents thought I should major in something that wasn't artsy. So it was English lit. But I always made things. I was always busy making things. And so my first job was a Federated department store in Houston, because my counselor at Tech said, well, the closest thing to design, you go to work and be a buyer in a department store. Well, that had nothing to do with design. It had to do with the design eye, perhaps. But I will say this. My 3 years at Foley's, well, I call it my MBF, my Master's of Business at Foley's, because you learn so much about business, about everything. And back then, I think it's different than it is now, because the department went from the basement to receiving goods all the way up to managing the salespeople. Today, it's much more segmented.
Right.
But it was, and from there I got to New York, so everything worked out okay.
And when was you? Well, in '83, you bought the first showroom.
Yeah.
And what was that experience like to
You mean,
jump
why did I
in?
do that? I did not have a business plan. I had an escape plan. I was getting a divorce. I had 3 young sons. They were 4, 6, and 7. I knew the divorce was coming before the husband did, so we bought this little showroom. But it wasn't my first thing. I was going to do rehab. I was going to renovate houses.
Okay.
And so we had a house in Boca at the time, and I had made an offer. There was a house, it was the old Dodge Estate in Palm Beach. And it happened to be done by the same architect that had done our house in Boca. That was Marion Sims Wyeth. It worked for Meisner. And so the house was available, made an offer. They accepted it. I was too dumb to know. After they verbally accepted it, they had to sign it. We went skiing. The banker bought the house for $5,000 more than I offered. And it was $1 million with 50 feet on the ocean front.
Wow.
But he'd given it, his wife had died, and he'd given it to a music entity in Palm Beach, and he had a $2 million write-off. And so he wanted $1 million for it. But anyway, that didn't work out. So the small showroom in Chicago, where I had been a client, a customer, doing my own houses and so forth, and that's how I got in this business.
Wow.
And so it was sort of accidental. In fact, a lot of things in my life have been more accidental than planned.
So, I mean, as I said to the audience earlier, that your showrooms are magnificent, and
Thank
they
you.
really, truly raise the bar for showroom.
Thanks.
How did you make that sort of shift or that decision to say, I'm going to really do something special?
It wasn't a decision.
Okay.
It's just what you do.
Mm-hmm.
if you're not going to do something the best, why would you want to do it? And I had a lot of Carl Springer furniture at the time, and I'd known Carl from when I lived in New York. And it was sort of a natural, and you looked, I think one thing that happens is, I think when somebody comes in with a fresh eye, it's quite different than when you're in the business a long time. Because it's very hard to say, well, this is how, today I can say, well, this is how we do it, that's why that won't work. But I didn't know what wouldn't work back then. And coming out of a few years in retail and a few years of being a conspicuous consumer, because husband and I had a business that we ran together that did quite well for a moment. We leased piggyback trailers to the railroads. Yeah. But I will tell you this, in running a business well, whether it's just as creative, requires just as much entrepreneurial lifeblood as being a designer. I mean, it's different detail. And I think that coming in from it with a different eye and a different background and a different look, and so you wanted to, hey, listen, I used to be there till 4 o'clock in the morning during NeoCon, the night before NeoCon, because I was so nervous it wouldn't look fabulous, sitting there painting walls, doing things. So I don't know, I kind of knew from the beginning that the business would be successful. I could do it better if we had better presentation, great customer service, and the best product we could find. And, you know, looking back, it was so simple, but it kind of worked that way.
Did you ever have an issue attracting the best talent or the best product?
Well, I don't know, because if you miss the best talent, you don't know what you missed, right? I don't know. I had great people to work with, and a lot of them came straight out of college. Early on, we had a lot of people who were really good who worked for, that I worked with, and that was why it was, I think that's, I did a talk at NeoCon, and the talk at NeoCon I addressed, this past NeoCon, was the secret sauce in the type of change. Well, the time of change, I think we all know what technology is doing to our world today, and we have change everywhere. But what is the secret sauce? Because people have asked me over these 30 years I've been doing this, how did you make the brand? What is your secret sauce? How did you do it? And I always say, this is not a secret sauce. You know, it's common sense. You just work hard. There's not a secret sauce. And then as I was writing that talk for NeoCon, I had a small keynote. I had a dream. But before and then I knew what the secret sauce was. So I'm going to tell you. But today, Anna, are you here? Anna, who I haven't seen for maybe a year, 2. Anna worked for us first in Minneapolis. She walked in today. I haven't seen her for 2 years. She happened in. It's like I happened to have a dream. These happened to go together. Anyway, Anna walked in and said hello. Then she said, but I learned everything in Holly Hunt. It's Holly Hunt University. And I said, well, what did you learn? And she said, well, I learned about presentation. I learned about customer service. You let me work with the interns who would come in and I could help them. And I learned about, she said I could just infuse the beauty of the space, but I really had this desire to learn. I wanted to learn, and you let me learn. And I said, oh my God, that's the dream I had. That was the secret sauce. I had a dream. This is about 4 weeks ago, 2 weeks before I was nervous about what was I going to say in this talk. There was a box. It was about 6 inches tall. It was rectangular.
This is in your dream?
It was in my dream. It was wrapped in paper. We pulled back the paper, pulled back the tissue paper, and in this box was attitude, it was talent, it was a desire to learn, it was experience. It was everything the person brings when they come. It's the gift. Wow. But the gift doesn't work until you mix it with something. So the alchemy, the magic is when you take this gift and you mix it with collaboration with other people, and everybody brings the things that they have and do, where you can learn and grow, and then you have a passion for what you do, and it has to be bigger than yourself. You have to be building something that's fabulous and bigger than you, and you're doing it with other people, and then you have the passion, the commitment, the love of what you do, and the determination to get it right. Failure is never an option. Did we fail? Yeah, we failed in little things, but failure is not an option in the big picture. And when you do that, That's the magic. And that has been the secret sauce of our success in this
Right.
business from day one. Because I can go back and look at all the people who worked for us. They're able to learn enough and grow enough and take enough away that it's equal to what you give.
That's great.
And so that's my secret sauce story. Anna, thank you, because if you hadn't walked in today, I wasn't going to tell that story.
Well, it's true. I mean, I do think that it's all those ingredients that you just listed, or you put that all together. But you do need the right person with the right passion, the right leadership to make that happen. And, you know, because you could have very talented people, and if they're not in the right place,
It's true.
It's not going to be the same thing.
That's true.
Did
There's
you
an
ever-
alchemy if you get the right people together. It's a diversity, too. They can't all be alike, and it's
Right.
interesting. The magic comes when you get the right people in the right place
Well,
with the
there's
right attitude.
This tool I use, it's in my book, about culture and skill. And
Say it again.
It's about culture and skill.
Uh-huh.
And you need the people who fit your culture,
Yes.
who have the right skill set.
Yes.
And if they have one versus the other, it doesn't work as well.
There has to be a fit, and you have to have a common goal
Right.
and a commonality of, you don't have, well, I think it works better if you can really be good friends, but you don't have to be great friends, but you have to like working together.
You do. You spend more time at work than you do anywhere else. in
Oh
your
my
life.
God, that's why you have to love what you do, because there's a lot of, whatever you do, there's a lot of boring stuff that goes on with it, and if you don't like it, it's not fun.
That's
So-
true. Did you ever think that the Holly Hunt empire would be as big as it is today?
I never thought about an empire. I just thought about how was I going to support 3 kids, and if I'm going to do it, it should be the best it can be. In fact, I probably thought I would be rescued one day and some handsome guy would come along and take me away, and anyway, that didn't happen. And guys, I was married twice, so I know, you know, no kids the first time. But I didn't have a plan. My plan was really an escape plan. I needed a desk, a telephone, a job, something to do, and I knew I could do that I think it would get really big. I never thought about it. I remember somebody asking me, "It's where are you going to take this?" I said, "Take it." I said, "Well, as far as it will go." He said, "That's not an answer." And I said, "Well, I don't have an answer. I don't know, but we're going to keep building until it's no fun."
Yeah.
And so I'm not retiring until I get it right. That means never.
Exactly.
But I think I think when you love what you do, you sort of get married to the business, or your avocation and vocation finally do become one. And I think that I just fell in love with the business, and including the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, it's not all pretty things.
So if you're looking back now, do you think of other professions that if someone said to you one day, okay, you have to rethink this and you're going to do something else, what would that be?
My father always wanted me to be a girls' basketball coach. Because you see, I was actually a pretty good girls' basketball player. And I was always embarrassed about that. Now, none of you probably have ever heard me say that, because it didn't become okay for me to say this until I was at the Ideas Festival in Aspen last week. And I thought it was kind of déclassé to have done that. You know, it wasn't so cool. Anyway, the CEO, female CEO from Ernst & Young, said, you know, we did a study about elite women athletes and leadership. About 50% of leading women in a variety of things have played serious sports. But she said at the sea level, it was 96%.
Really?
Is
Wow.
that wild?
That's wild.
So I said, okay, it's okay that I play basketball, seriously. But I thought that was really fascinating, because they do relate it to men, but I never had seen it related to women. Of course, the women they're relating it to today are probably 20 years younger than me or 10 years younger than me, but I was an early start.
Good.
But you know, the doing houses I might have done, and I did some of that while I was married to Ron and while we had the equipment business. But it would have been something entrepreneurial, and it would have been something that had to do with fashion or design. I don't know that I thought about furniture design. I thought I would be a clothing designer. I did my high school paper on Coco Chanel. And who knew who Coco Chanel was in Anson, Texas, you know? don't even know how I knew then. But I think you're kind of born that way. People say you can teach entrepreneurialism. I think you kind of are born with it. Anyway, I was.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It is an innate quality, for sure.